Second Lieutenant Schmugatelli, I just want to thank you for all the hard work you have done over the last several months. You have shown great initiative and aggressiveness in all the tasks assigned to you. You have made a tremendous impact, not only on your troop, but also in the squadron. Your efforts are not going unnoticed. I am not saying by me only. I am saying that your men notice what you do and the professionalism that you exhibit. It is refreshing to see young lieutenants, or LTs, like you, knowing that you are going to be one hell of a leader. Keep it up. Trident 6.
Welcome to the Instinctive Influencers podcast, a show where influence becomes one of your tools for success. Now, here are your hosts, Brian Weber and Ed Haley.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I am Ed.
And this is the Instinctive Influencers podcast. Yet another week of a great show that we have enjoyed putting together, Ed. I'm pretty excited to talk about what we're going to get into. We've obviously referred to it before. But before we really get into this show, Ed, I have to say thank you for being my partner in crime.
Yeah, Brian, I appreciate that sentiment, and I would like to thank you for getting me to commit to this. I enjoy it, and I really appreciate all the support that we get from our listeners.
So with that, audience, those listeners out there, today's show is an Influence Is episode, and influence is gratitude. So you may have thought, well, that sounds a little too scripted, the fact that we would sit there and thank each other, but we never even talked about doing that beforehand. So, and I had to thank my one of my best buds. So what we did was this week, Ed has really gotten me into the idea of reading more of this one website. It's found on Facebook also, called The Green Notebook, or From the Green Notebook. And I'll tell you, there are some great articles on there. I mean, just really meaningful, deep, thoughtful stuff. Some stuff that's kind of more on the shallow end, but it's almost like each one you read, you can get a little something out of. Don't you think so, Ed?
Yeah, and so first, for our listeners that aren't military, because as soon as you say the Green Notebook, the military folks know. So basically, we get these books, and they're green, they're hardbound, and as leaders in the military, we jot down everything in there. I mean, I've used that thing to jot down, information about my soldiers or taskings that are upcoming, suspenses. As I learn a new job, I take notes in one of them. Every level of development school that I've been to, Brian, I still have my green notebooks that I have jotted down notes in class to help me study for exams in. My sister, who's been out the Army, my sister's been out the Army for quite a while, and she still, when I go to her house, I put a bookshelf together for her, and she still has several of her green notebooks from when she was in. So that's where the whole From the Green Notebook concept came from. It's an excellent tool, and it's an excellent website. I have read some awesome articles on there, and my wife has too. So it's not just strictly a military thing, because my wife has read some, and we've discussed them and had some pretty good discussions behind them.
That's awesome, brother. And you know what's funny? I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, I remember looking at some Amazon pictures one day, and I thought I saw green notebooks in there. And sure enough, as you were speaking, I went ahead and did a quick search, and they sell the green notebooks on Amazon. So for that, to help the audience understand this, and if they want to, they want to get their own little green notebook that they can't because they're not in the service and they can't go get one from Supply, I'm going to go ahead and put some links in the show notes just so they can get their own green notebook, and then they can start taking their notes in their own little professional green notebook. And I will tell you, audience out there, people do a lot of things with their green notebooks. They have these certain covers they put on them. Some people like to glue patches to the side of them. It's just, it's kind of, if you think about it, it's almost, I don't know what you might think, Ed, but to me, it's almost like one of those unspoken rules of being a leader in the Army is to own a green notebook.
Yeah, I agree. And so, I mean, I've done everything I took tape, like 100-mile-an-hour tape or masking tape, and I've taped mine to try to waterproof it a little bit on the outside. And they take a beating, and then, but they're so useful. And then, every leader, we do the page flip. So you take the corner and you fold the corner down, so you got the little angle, and that's your tabbing system. Those things are so useful and handy. They're actually, I just took a note, and I'm gonna have to send a green notebook to my brother myself. My wife also, she works for the exchange on post, and she has a green notebook. And when she was training to be a manager, that's what she takes her notes in. That's what she writes her schedule in. So she has a green notebook.
Very cool. Awesome. Yeah, I know. It's funny. You can find them at the, I didn't know if you realize you can find them at the PX too, the Post Exchange. They have them there in the aisle for office supplies and stuff. So I thought that was kind of cool. But
Yeah.
But I'll make sure I add that in the link.
So I can get them there when I retire.
Yeah, when we retire. But okay, so the whole point of today's show really is about gratitude, and it's taking basically a look at two different articles that Ed found one article and I found the other article, and it's crazy. They mesh pretty much perfectly together. Now, it also looks like the author is actually the same for each, so it kind of works out best for us. Each article, the first one is one that we've talked about before. Ed actually spoke about it on one of the episodes not too long ago. The leadership lessons our parents taught us. The second one is actually titled The Quarterback, the Coach, and the CEO, The Art of Gratitude. And what we want to do is we want to take a little bit deeper look at just gratitude in general through these articles and what's given in them. Because I mean, the information's really good. I really enjoyed it.
All righty. Leadership lessons our parents taught us is not to chew with your mouth shut. I mean, that is a thing, but that's not what we're talking about today.
Yeah, definitely. So right off the bat, let's get into this. Let me read this first little paragraph we got here. When I first started learning to talk, my parents taught me an important lesson about great leadership. They taught me to be gracious. Whenever someone did something nice for me, they would look down at me and ask, "What do you say?" I would reply, "Thank you." I don't think my experience is much different from that of other leaders when they were children. Somehow, though many of us discarded this lesson, we quit being gracious along the way and started expecting people to do for us without saying thank you in return. When we fail to exhibit gratitude, those who work for us take that as thanklessness, and our organizations suffer. When people aren't happy, they start to give less and less to the organization. They no longer want to buy into the mission. You know, Ed, that does speak a lot about the whole idea of that extreme ownership that we've talked about also, where if we're showing this gratitude, you want people to want to be there. Matter of fact, just this week, I had to sit down with, who was I talking with? Oh, I was talking with the chaplain. He came by to talk to me about something in my office, and we closed the door and we had a discussion. And it was about how the organization's doing, thus far since I've arrived, and then also the commander arrived. And one of the things that we had talked about that I found to be kind of informing or kind of important was that I told him I wanted to see the organization where people want to show up every day, and not only want to show up, but want to show up and are happy to be there.
So I'm sure you've been in organizations where you drive to work and then you sit in your car and then you gotta like pump yourself up. You gotta take a deep breath to go in. That's not what I want as a leader. I don't want my people to feel that feeling. That's a terrible feeling when you gotta, all right, here we go. Like that's not the impact you want. You want them to come to work and want to be at work. I got it. Certain things we do in the military, if it's raining, snowing, whatever, and we know we're getting ready to go to the range, it's really hard to sell that as making you want to be here today because it's going to be miserable. But there's also ways to turn that into a positive. You can really, if you get creative. But I think if you show them your appreciation, they understand that what they're doing is important, and that makes them want to be there.
I know exactly what you're talking about too, with the whole, you're literally sitting in your car and you're like, oh man, I don't want to be here today. And then you're like, well, I guess I got to do it. Got to get this done. And it's almost like you're counting down the minutes to when you get to go to lunch. And then you're counting down the minutes to when you get to leave for the day. And I've been in the other organizations where it's like the whole day just zoomed by, and I'm like, what happened to the day? And I enjoyed working there. I enjoyed the people I was around. I constantly felt like I was in constant movement. And when I had to leave that organization, or that organization ended, I was actually sad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so a lot of it plays on the culture. And I know we've talked about doing an episode about culture and work and stuff in the workplace. Well, even where we were before, like depending on the current culture, where we worked before, some days that was me. I was like, oh, I do not want to do this. And then at the end, it was very much, I loved what I was doing at the end. And I really was not, I was excited because I was going to Europe, but I wasn't excited to leave the organization because I had a great boss, right? The two people they brought in to replace me and the other guy, they were awesome. I loved working with them. If he could have had a 3-person team with the three of us and that boss, man, that would have been the ideal situation in that organization for me. And then, you got to move on. But I felt like I was appreciated because the bearded ninja, he let you know he appreciated. Now he might not come out and say, "Hey, thank you for everything you do," but his words and actions did say it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
yeah, no, that's different.
And you know what? It may not always be the organization too. It may be the people you work with. Because I could tell you, that last organization we were that you and I were a part of, I felt like my stress level would get a little bit higher, and then it would drop down. It would get higher and it would drop down. But I know I had these waves of movement, and I enjoyed what we did. Like our overall mission, I loved it. I really did. But there were just times where I was just like, come on, I felt like I was, things were just getting overwhelming, and I learned how to deal with it. But the key thing was like, for instance, the ninja, he got myself and Ethan calendars, and they're like those those desk calendars where each day you rip one off and it tells you something new.
Yeah.
And it was like the national day of whatever calendars, and we each got one. But he took the time and he thought, well, how I know my friend, I think he would consider me his friend. My friend's about to go away, and he's about to leave his family for a little while, and they're going to be separated. So maybe I can give them a way to stay connected. And the fact that he did that, it made me feel like he was saying thank you. Now he said thank you, I think, different times to us, and obviously we gave it back to him. But it was that small gesture. It wasn't like he went out and spent a whole bunch of money. He got us 2 calendars because he wanted to see a family to continue to connect. And sure enough, I can tell you right now, what I love is when I get those messages from him. Actually, it was funny. I just sent him a message about something the other day, and he's like, I haven't heard from you in a while. What's going on? Because I hadn't messaged him in a while. But it made me feel good because it almost like, wow, he does want to hear from me, and it was that whole thank you type thing. And I don't know how to explain it, but it makes you feel good about the people you're around and you want to be a part of your life.
Yeah, and then some people they appreciate stuff like, so. Let's talk about George, right? And we've talked about maybe having George as an interview eventually. So George, when he got there, right, and he went through the training program, this is one of the very first. So I worked with George for a few months, but this is one of those moments when I was like, that is a great individual.
Yes.
He was trained by Cortez, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of his training, when he got certified, he got a mug, and it was engraved, I believe, or maybe it was wood burn. He got a mug and gave to Cortez to show his appreciation for him and what he trained him to do and how he trained him.
Absolutely.
That to me is a great individual. And if I'm Cortez, and I know Cortez appreciated it, like the feeling like, wow, I just did my job, really, but this is how much he appreciated what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Man, to me, that's a relationship that's off and running, man.
I remember that. Specifically because, obviously my office was in that hallway. And I remember Cortez saying something to me about, oh, you wouldn't believe it. This is the first time this has ever happened. One of the guys that I trained to be an instructor, he gave me a gift as a thank you, and that's just one of those small tokens of appreciation. So let me continue on a little bit real quick here of what this has to say in this amazing article. But when we take those simple steps to say thank you, the benefits are worth far more than the minimal effort it takes to say those words. For instance, graciousness puts people in a good mood, and good moods can help our organizations grow and excel. As Daniel Goleman writes in Emotional Intelligence, why it can matter more than IQ. Hold on, let me back up a second. Daniel Goleman writes in Emotional Intelligence. We talked about that before, haven't we yet? I'm pretty sure that's an episode.
Maybe done a whole episode on that, and I'm actually reading a book right now about it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's almost like you can never get enough of what do they call that? Lifelong
Learning.
Absolutely. Right. So in this book, he writes, good moods, while they last, enhance the ability to think flexibly and with more complexity, thus making it easier to find solutions to problems, whether intellectual or interpersonal. And I can tell you, I personally can tell you that usually when I'm happy and I'm with a group of people that I like you and the Ninja, that's when the creative juices were flowing. And we've talked about it multiple times where we would sit there in our little huddle group and we would discuss this and we would say, okay, well, if we try to do this and then we try to do that, how will this all work? Oh, I know we could do this. Yeah, that's a good idea. Well, what about this? Oh, yeah, I love that. That's great. Let's try that, And that's what we did to enhance the organization we were a part of, but we enjoyed it together. And we were in good moods while we were, most of the time, while we were talking about these things.
Yeah, so I'm very much a guy whose mood is driven by who I surround myself with too. So like you said, I could be in a meeting with a bunch of people I really like. So when I used to go to meetings with Richard, right, at that organization, because I knew he was a clown, I loved sitting next to him though, because he always put me in a better mood because he was just, and his humor was so different. So who you surround yourself can drive that mood, especially somebody who appreciates what you do for them and you appreciate what, and it's a mutual thing.
It's funny. You brought up Richard. I used to like to call him G Money. He sent me an email not too long ago and literally it said, I still have access to your calendar. Wow. You need to spread some of that out or something like that. It was hilarious. And I'm like, out of the blue, I was like, why is he sending me an email? And then I read it and I was like, oh, okay. And I actually left him on my email. I didn't delete him. I deleted some other people, but I was like, yeah, I'll let him keep my calendar, whatever. It's not that important. But you're right. Rich was he's one of those guys. He still is one of those guys because actually he lives just down the road from my wife. He's one of those guys that it's like, I still want to stay connected to that person. I loved his attitude. I loved conversating with him. I mean, sometimes he would be grumpy about things, but he always seemed to have a good attitude. And then his wife on top of that, like the two of them, they're two peas in a pod. They're perfect for each other.
Yes.
But it never seemed like they were complainers or anything like that. They would try to bring you down. They often brought you up with their attitudes or their get up and go. And man, Rich, he was so smart. Dang.
Yes. And she was too. I liked her because I appreciated her humor too. Actually, I have a TV here that they won at the Christmas party that they didn't want because they had TVs all over the house already. And they gave it to my wife. It's actually the TV we have in our room.
That's funny. And why are you sending me pictures of food? Oh, somebody went to the bakery and now I have pictures of food in front of me. I'm starving because I didn't eat my lunch yet. That's okay. I got it.
And yes, I did thank my wife. I thanked her and told her how much I appreciate her going to the bakery.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's continue on with this. What this has to say on this with this article, because I felt like that was some really good stuff about good moods, but there's more to go. Over the years, I've noticed that the bosses who say thank you on a regular basis have subordinates who are willing to go the extra mile to accomplish the mission. In contrast, those who fail to be gracious must constantly push their organizations to excel. They don't have commitment, they have compliance. Oh my goodness. That makes so they don't have commitment. They have compliance. They don't have people who are committed to the actual organization and their mission, what they need to do. They have is people that are saying, "Yes, I'll get that done and I'm going to go home after I'm done," because they don't really want to be there. I can tell you, hey, Ed, I'll tell you, man. And it's not we're going to talk about the gratitude and it being actually not being fake, because I will tell you each week I try to thank the formation, like as a whole, thank them for being such hard workers and doing a great job, because at the level that a lot of them are performing, at the you look at the grade level or the rank level that's in my formation, and you look at the level they're performing at, I'm often shocked that they're able to get some of the things done, because some of this, and it's not because it's never because I don't think they're smart enough. It's because they're dealing with things that would be dealt with for somebody who's seasoned, who understands it. No, instead, what they do is they ask the question about, like, hey, I've got to do this. What's the kind of a direction to go with this, or something like that? And then you give them direction and they get after it. But I make sure to say thank you to the group. Or every time I see someone, we mentioned it before. Hey, how you doing? Happy to see you today. Hey, thank you. And all that back and forth constantly, or just a pat on the back. Say, hey, thanks for all the hard work you do. Sooner or later, and I heard it once before, and I think I've mentioned on the show. I heard it. If you keep saying it, or you think you're saying it too much, then you're not saying it enough. And I couldn't agree more with that. What do you think, man?
I do also think, though, Brian, it's important, it's genuine too.
Yes.
Listen, these guys, these people we work with, these soldiers, whatever, I know they are smart. And if you're not genuine and you're just paying them lip service with your thank yous, they're going to pick up on it so fast. And now it's having the reversed impact from what you wanted to. But yeah, no, I already told you, that's a big thing for me, is to try to speak to people and let them know, hey, I appreciate it. Appreciate what you do. I have a platoon sergeant right now, and she's got people who's senior to her in the formation, and if they give her a hard time or whatever, I make sure, though, because I'm trying to counter them doing that, by telling her, hey, I really appreciate you helping me with XYZ, or hey, thanks for the heads up on this. Hey, I appreciate what you're doing for us. I know it's not easy, because it's not her full-time gig. She still has to do a regular job. This is like an additional thing. So, but that boosts that relationship with her too, right? And it builds that. We talk about leadership capital, but I would argue that this is actually building kind of a social capital too, right? Because she is my peer. When I need something too, she's more likely to be like, hey, sorry, Haley, hey, absolutely, I got you, or whatever it is. So you're building not just leadership capital, but you're building a little social capital in there too.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's just, I mean, it comes down to, understanding that, how people interact. Because we talk about, and just above, we talk about the emotional intelligence piece. Well, sometimes these thank yous, they can seem almost robotic. And if we don't engage somebody, like you actually, and it's like reading them and knowing something about them. For instance, you don't just use it. You actually have to engage them on that, and then ask them follow-up questions on it. And then when you're done with the conversation, one of the best things that I've learned and that I continue to try to use is, well, hey, thank you very, even if, like, say if it's a good thing or a bad thing, no matter what, hey, well, thank you very much for your service. I'm really proud of you, and I really appreciate everything you do for this organization. Something like that.
Yeah.
Man, it goes miles.
Yeah. Have you ever, Brian, so here's my question. Have you ever had somebody say, hey, thank you, and that's it?
I would have to say so, but I don't know if it was, to me, it's not something that usually stands out. Usually it's a conversation, and then it's a thank you. And that's usually the ones I remember the most.
Yeah. It's just weird, because like sometimes people will be like, and this is what they would pick, your subordinates are going to pick up on, or, when you say, hey, thank you, like I've had soldiers turn around and go, for what? Like, what did I do? I didn't do anything, right?
Yeah.
But when you start naming that specific thing,
Oh yeah.
like if you see the soldier who picks the trash up in the parking lot walking into the building, hey, thanks for picking that trash up. That's awesome. Okay, now you are paying attention. It's not just some generic thank you. It's a specific thank you, and then that helps. So I know that you do thank people and you show gratitude a lot. Well, you're in charge of a pretty big size organization. So what kind of impact do you think that has on the sphere of your influence in the organization by doing that? Like, what do you think some of the positives are to it?
What do I think the positives are? Well, I don't know. It's just maybe they want me around too because I'm not like just some grumpy old guy that makes them pick up trash when they see it on the ground type thing. Instead, I'm engaging, and then also I'm showing that I'm thankful for them, or I'm grateful for who they are. And funny thing you asked, we're about to do our command climate survey, and the commander and I, we kind of sat there and we talked over the questions, because you have to select so many questions of this and so many questions of that, and you just kind of basically you tailor it to because you want to see what's going on in your organization. For those of you who have never dealt with something like this, you may have done something like this if you're a civilian in the civilian sector. But in the Army, when we do a command climate, normally what happens is when the commander takes over command after about 90 days, they do a command climate because they want to know what the climate is within their organization. Now, some call them organizational surveys or whatever to just understand how everything's going. But you ask certain questions, like a question could be as simple, it could be a yes or no, or it could be rated like from good to bad, through a number scheme, or the question could be like, do you trust that your commander will take care of issues that you bring up? Yes or no, or it's actually usually more of a scale, 1 through whatever type thing, or
Agree, strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. That's absolutely the scale right there. As a matter of fact, I just did one.
oh yeah, okay, but we're and we selected specific questions, and it's funny that you asked me that, because some of the questions that I helped him select, he selected questions, and then he said, hey, out of these ones, which ones do you like? I said, you know what, maybe this one and this one, because I want to see if some of our actions that we have been taking, we purposely are doing with an organization to foster a positive climate. I want to see if they're taking place, and we're only doing a certain group of people for this command climate, and it's basically E1 through E6, because at the same time we're doing ours, there's going to be a higher level one, and they're going to use the seniors for the higher level one, which I think is going to work out well after talking with our EO guy. But you mentioned that, and I thought to myself, oh, man, you know what? I wish you had asked me this after the command climate's over, and then I could give you honest feedback.
Ah, yeah. Yeah, because so you explained it kind of to the listeners. At the end of all this, what happens is those results of the survey come back, and the equal opportunity folks take a look at it. And if there's anything that's kind of like a red flag or alarming, like we're a little bit shocked by this, they bring that to the commander's attention, and then the commander then develops his plan for addressing it, looking into it, how to fix it, things like that. So it is a good tool when it's taken seriously, because I've read results sometimes and they don't take them seriously, but when those things are taken serious, they're a good tool. We just had ours, and I mean, some of the stuff was like very lower level concerns. It was a battalion one, so it wasn't really a battalion level concern when we did ours, but there was some good feedback, like some real genuine concerns about, like the new Army physical fitness testing and stuff like that. So those things are useful, and they let you know if people, because let's be honest, discrimination could still be happening in your organization. I want to know that. If 20% of my respondents say, hey, they've experienced discrimination, then that's when the commander has to step in and say, whoa, we need to look at this. Why? How? But I was just curious, because we're talking about gratitude, Brian. And I just know you as a person, that you're very gracious and you're very quick to thank people for helping you with anything. It could be small stuff like, helping you tie your bike down in the back of your truck. And you're still going to thank a person for that. And I just want to know, like, as a senior level leader with a large pool, what kind of impact you've seen. So maybe we'll revisit that on the show one day as a kind of rabbit hole, just to see how the command climate went.
Oh, I'm excited. I can't wait. That'll be great. Just to kind of talk about it a little bit. And I hope well, I'll let you know how the results are just in case, because maybe something we don't want to talk about. I've seen that before too. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. We've experienced it together. Matter of fact, I know we have.
Yes, we did. I I was the equal opportunity person at the time.
That's right. Yeah. Wait, hold on. I got to back up though. Was that when we were together at the academy, or no, was it,
Before that.
would that have been when we were at the other organization? Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Yeah. All right, so let me continue on with what this article has to say, and then we'll jump into these little three areas that kind of help us guide towards using gratitude and whatnot. All right, so right here it says saying thank you is also good for the person saying it. Research suggests that being grateful improves our overall well being. As leaders, our mood determines the quality of the decisions we make, and our organizations will mimic our behavior. So, if we're emotionally or mentally closed off, our organization will be too. By taking the time to say thank you, showing gratitude towards our subordinates, we're setting the tone for how the rest of the organization operates. I sit here and read it, and I know somebody's done the right research for it and whatnot. But when you read it, it's like, wow, yeah, that's exactly how it is. It's almost like it's reassuring things that we already kind of know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this goes into when we talk about emotional intelligence. This is where the self-awareness becomes super key, because eventually you want to be able to recognize that your mood, what effect it has on your decisions and things of that nature. And you only get that through reflection. I think we talked about that once before too. But through reflection, you get to understand, okay, when I'm in this mood, my tendency is to stray this way. I need to bring it back, which is now self-management, and make better decisions. So that's crucial, because whatever decisions we make, our organization's going to roll off that behavior. So when you have that kind of impact, and then more responsibility, the more rank we get, our impact is even greater. For me, I'm in an office, I'm in a platoon or a section of 19, but the platoon sergeant, she has 90. So that's 90 people that she's got in her sphere of influence directly. I have indirectly that, but I have 19 directly. So you can see it just grows. And then you got second, third order, and ripple effects.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, that's kind of like one of those things where if you're feeling good and they're feeling good, you'll notice the day, like I said before, the days go by much faster. And it's almost like you look forward to coming back that next time. If you notice it, like that feel good feeling, you may get it like when you go to the gym, right? And you want to keep going because you enjoy that feeling. And that's what you're trying to do. People may frown upon the idea that, oh, well, why are you always trying to connect things to feelings? Well, how we feel and the chemical makeup of our body, and you'll read it if you read anything by Daniel Goleman with emotional intelligence too. But the chemical makeup of our body and how we feel, or how we go about things to make us feel a certain way, truly affects our behaviors, our actions upon those behaviors. I mean, there's just so much there, but I can't get too far into it because I'd love for us to start talking about basically how we can show gratitude. So right off the bat, Ed, why don't you give us that first one, and tell us about something about that note you read earlier.
So on this one, Brian, we kind of hinted at it throughout the early part of this episode, but say thank you and be specific. Remember, we talked about a generic thank you is not going to have that same kind of effect as naming something specific. What are you thankful for? So let them know, hey, exactly why are you thankful? And it could be, so right now there's a young sergeant that's working on a presentation for something that we're planning, and she is working hard on that. So if I'm the sergeant major, right, who put her on that tasking, then I'm going to tell her, hey, you worked really hard on those slides and on developing this plan. It is some kind of a training event. Hey, I appreciate that. That's a great job. And then in the Army, what we like to do for appreciation as sergeant majors, maybe he gives her a coin of excellence, which in the Army, everybody, these senior guys, they have coins, or girls, they have coins, and it's a way to recognize excellence on the spot. But that's also still it's showing some gratitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the card was written by was one that the author received. He was working in operations, and he was an executive officer of an organization. When he had those roles, he kept these thank you cards in his desk. And if someone worked hard, or when they were moved to another assignment, or within the organization, or when they left, he would give them these thank you cards, thanking them for what they did at the organization. So kind of like Brian said, thank you for your service to the organization. Thank you for whatever. And he would write these notes out and give them to these people as they were leaving. And so that note that I read is one he actually received when he was a young lieutenant. He received it from one of his he received it from his first squadron troop commander, is what he says.
Right.
And if you listen to that note, I mean, I just want to say thank you for all the hard work you have done over the last several months. Like, very specific. This is what I'm thanking you for. He acknowledges the impact he's had in that note. And then he's even says, I'm not saying by me only, or your efforts are not going unnoticed. I'm not saying by me only. I'm saying that your men notice what you do and the professionalism that you exhibit. So when you have something like that, the impact of that, Brian. So I remember when I made Sergeant First Class, I got a lot of notes of congratulations from Sergeants Major, but there was one that was actually handwritten. It wasn't something that was printed and they just rubber stamped their name on. It was handwritten. After I got promoted and I moved offices, I only had the handwritten one hanging from my corkboard in my office because it meant more to me, because he took the time to write that. Now, maybe his secretary wrote it, right? But the point is, the message was that he hand wrote that, not print it, stamp it, send it. So that was one of the things. But yeah, and be specific. Be specific, like that you see in the and what I read to open the show.
Absolutely.
So what are your thoughts, Brian, on this technique? Because I actually like this thank you card idea. And if I'm ever in a position with subordinates, I actually thought about using something like this, and it's cheaper than coins.
No, it is. And I'm like, well, the way I see it, there's different levels of, or not levels, because I think it's all the same, but I think there's different ways to approach people, right? Because some people do like interaction. They do like that interaction. I've mentioned it before, and I'll put it in the show notes. Real good book by Gary Chapman. It's The 5 Language of Work Appreciation. Love that book. It's a very short read. You can pretty much read it in one day. Not a lot of chapters. It's just, but it goes over the many steps. But like you said, yeah, like some people like that. You kept it on the corkboard. I've got one that's framed. It's in a box at the house. Now it's at the house because I didn't want to bring all those stuff with me. But I guarantee you, when I have an office, when I'm back in the States, I have office, that particular one's good. That one that's framed is going to be up so people can see it, because I truly feel good about that one. And then you mentioned the coins, which I wanted to mention. I'm going to mention that one a little bit later, more about coins, awards, just giving people time off. I've seen that. Like, I've done that. Hey, thanks for all that hard work today. Listen, take the rest of the day off. Don't come back after lunch. I know you've done it.
I've enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed being told that. Don't come back.
But it's just, it's definitely, what's that?
That was feedback. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Yeah, I think what happened is because you're eating whatever Danish you are and you keep turning off your microphone.
I'm finished.
Oh, whatever. All right. So with this, let me move back to, we're going to move on to the next one, but I want to link this one. We said earlier when we started, there was 2 articles we were primarily pulling from the Green Notebook. The second article is actually, it's called The Quarterback, the Commander, and the CEO. Now, the letter that Ed read earlier in the opening of the show, and then he just discussed, that is that's showing the gratitude from the commander. And really, this is kind of revolving around that whole notes and whatnot. And then I do really like that. I think I'm gonna test it out and look at it. So, but with this next one, this is the next point of how to show good gratitude. Be honest. don't fake it.
Mm.
Sincerity counts. Don't say thank you if you don't mean it. If you're of the mindset that it's that person's job and you shouldn't thank them, try to put yourself in their shoes. What sacrifices did they make to complete that task? Did they struggle to overcome some knowledge gap because of their lack of experience? Think about how much better you would feel if someone appreciated your work.
Mm.
And man, I couldn't state that any better, because it is, yeah, when you have somebody who has like a knowledge gap and they don't understand something, and you're able to kind of thank them for it, you'll see, I don't know, you'll see more gratitude back from them too. It's kind of like a give and take type thing. But what I wanted to link this to the other one was, there's actually in that. So the quarterback, the commander, and the CEO, the art of gratitude. The quarterback he speaks of is actually Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, great NFL player. He played for the University of Tennessee. I would say he's number 2, right behind the best of all time, the GOAT.
Jim Plunkett.
What? No, not at all. But I want to read what they have in that article real quick, and then we're going to talk about it. It says Peyton Manning also learned the impact of a note firsthand. In a 2011 Los Angeles Times article, he said, "I remember when I got my first handwritten letter from Bobby Bowden telling me he enjoyed watching me play. Boy, it had an impact on me. He took the time to write that letter. I knew it wasn't from his assistant." Throughout his career, Manning wrote notes to coaches, teammates, fans, and retiring players. He said he learned the practice from his mom, who made him and his brothers write notes to thank relatives for gifts. Basically, what Peyton said is, one of the things he learned was from his mom, but he felt like when he received that one from Bobby Bowden early on, that it kind of really resonated with him. And it just goes to show, it doesn't matter what level performer or where you are in what you do. It doesn't matter. Anyone, you could be, we remember, if you remember correctly, not too long ago, we talked about being the janitor. I think it would be okay if somebody gave the janitor a handwritten note, or vice versa. The janitors said thank you to the children. Maybe you were a janitor at a school, said thank you to the children for doing all the hard work of keeping the playground clean so he didn't have to do it as much. I mean, it could be so many things, So it doesn't really matter what level it is or where it's coming from, just as long as the gratitude's being shown.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I talked about an episode where I had a former student actually write me an email. He found himself in the middle of a question of integrity while he was at the academy. And working with John Rogers, we figured out that, it was an innocent mistake and we weren't going to dismiss him from the course. But months later, he actually wrote me a thing and said, "Hey, thank you for, believing in me and believing that I had enough integrity that I did not do that. It meant a lot to me. And I used that as a leader." To me, Brian, I was on cloud 9 that day. I said, "Hey, check this out, Ninja. Hey, look what I got. I want to show, you know what I mean?" Like, I was impressed by that, which, by the way, I ran into one of our former students yesterday at dinner. But it meant a lot to me that they have that appreciation. So, I mean, we're looking at our side. So here's the question. You're the first sergeant, right? What if a soldier did come up to you and say, hey, First Sergeant, thank you for leading this company. Hey, First Sergeant, thank you for, teaching me this. Like, how would that make Brian feel at a senior? Because they're skipping several levels of leadership to thank you specifically, for what you do. How would that impact Brian?
So, Ed, it's funny you asked me that, because I can actually tell you from firsthand experience that has already happened. All right. Last week, I had a soldier. This week, actually, I had a soldier had an emergency with a family. I mean, I'm not going to say who it is, but the family had some things happen, and it was pretty drastic. And then basically, your grandfather passed away. And I can tell you, like, I talked to her multiple times about it. Every time I seen her, I bring it up, and I said, "Yeah, listen," and I told you I have a religious background. And I told her, I said, "I don't know if you have a religion or anything, but I just want to let you know I'm praying for, your family and that they get through this." And she said, "Thank you." And she said, "But thank you for all that you're doing to kind of support me and help me." And I'll tell you what, that's the moment where I know me as a person, not as first sergeant or as just a non-commissioned officer or just as a soldier, but as a person, I truly feel like I'm doing the right things. That's when I know. So when you said that, that's how I know, man. Like I know when if they come back with a thank you to me, and believe me, you know I am. Any soldier in the formation is more than welcome to approach me about anything because I will talk to them about it. But that right there, that strikes a chord, man. How about you? How about you? You know, when Big Sarge gets thanked.
Yeah, I mean, it feels weird, first of all. But it makes you feel good. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, Brian. That's one of the things that makes it hard to retire. Because when you get those opportunities, when you have an impact on a young life, and when they thank you and they acknowledge it, and you're like, man, that felt so great. Like it's almost like you're addicted to that dopamine that you get from that. Yeah, that's one of the things that plays into the difficulty for me in saying, all right, I'm gonna retire. Because am I ever gonna impact as many lives as I do now? It's strange, and it could be a little bit selfish. Especially my wife would agree it's probably selfish because she's probably ready for me to retire, but all right, maybe not in Europe. She's not ready for me to retire because she's loving this Europe thing. But it is one of those things that we as leaders look at and go, like, I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss that 22-year-old saying, hey, I really, appreciate you being me. So for your example, being there when my grandfather passed, like, so it feels great. I think it makes me understand why I'm in the military and why I want to be a non-commissioned officer. At least for me, that's why.
Definitely. All right, so let's talk about let's get into this third one, man. Let's see what we got here.
All righty. Oh, I like this one. When appropriate, go public. In their book, Taking the Guide On, which is a military-ish book, but bear with us, Allen and Burgess recognize the individuals in front of the formation. Not only does this instill a sense of pride in the individual, but it also demonstrates what behavior you want from the rest of the organization. This also works for staff meetings or briefs. Thanking a staff officer for a great brief in front of the staff will show others what you value as a leader. I can tell you, I've actually seen some senior leadership, like I'm talking general officer type stuff, and a captain will finish briefing and he'll say, hey, thank you for that briefing. That was really good. Well done. It seems so like just kind of like at the moment, but that captain's not thinking that. This is a general officer. This is like cream of the crop, top guys.
Make or break.
Yeah, and he's saying, hey, thank you. And then for our listeners who aren't military, hey, my wife, again, she works for the exchange system and she got an award. Well, guess what? They did it in front of the other employees of the store. They'll also do it at like their Christmas party. They'll recognize stuff, bring people up and recognize, hey, and then they read the award, which we in the military read our awards. And there's a reason behind it because in the award, it's going to say that this award is being awarded for outstanding performance during the command inspections, or for my wife, I think it was during inventories. You know what I mean? So they're telling them her outstanding performance during the inventory, and here's how we're showing our gratitude. And they'll give them like a gift card and a certificate. So when you have an organization, there's nothing wrong with that. We have all these meetings and we spend so much time in meetings, wasting time. And we're going to talk about that on an upcoming book episode. We're going to talk about wasting time in meetings, but all right, well, if you're going to waste time in meetings already, why not take 5 minutes to bring up some staff and recognize that staff? When you and I were at the academy, yeah, everybody was like, oh, the birthdays, oh, the anniversaries. I thought it was great. I thought it was good to bring us up and say, hey, let's all wish happy birthday to these people for this month. When our civilians reach milestones in their career, let's bring up Mr. Al and thank him for his 35 years of federal service. That's like a 20-year career and then 15 years as a civilian. That's a significant accomplishment. So why not recognize them, and let them know? Because if you think about it, the commandant said, what? I really appreciate everything you do down there in the S4 section for this academy. So go public. Praise. What's the old saying, Brian?
Praise in public.
Punish in private. Yeah.
I think it really ties into what is also within that article I was talking about with the quarterback, the commander, and the CEO, the art of gratitude, because now it's the CEO. And when you think about this, then you'll be like, okay, that makes sense when it comes to public. But Doug Cunnett, the CEO responsible for Campbell's Soup's turnaround, also used handwritten notes to connect with his employees. In a 2011 HBR article, he wrote, "Believe it or not, I have sent roughly 30,000 handwritten notes to employees like Patty over the last decade, from maintenance people to senior executives. I let them know that I am personally paying attention and celebrating their accomplishments. I send handwritten notes too because well over half of our associates don't use a computer. I also jump on any opportunities to write it to people who are partner with our company anytime I meet with them. It's the least you can do for people who do things to help your company and industry. On the face of it, writing handwritten notes may seem like a waste of time, but in my experience, they build goodwill and lead to higher productivity." Now, I'm going to read this last part. And this last part is where I got the whole going public, because this is what happened. And this is talk about Doug. When he was hospitalized years later in a terrible car accident, employees and friends flooded his hospital room with handwritten notes. He wrote years later that these letters of encouragement aided in his speedy recovery. That, to me, that right there is exactly what it's about, right? He basically, he was doing all these good things for people and trying to let them know that he notices how well they're doing things and whatnot. And then when it came time that he was injured and he was hospitalized, those same people who may or may not still worked for him, they turned around and they sent him tons of handwritten notes. And then he stated it, as he wrote years later, that is what helped him with his speedy recovery. And the reason, I can tell you, the reason is just like earlier, the speedy recovery came through because the right chemicals were pumping through his body, making him feel good and letting him know that there are people behind him. I mean, somebody who's very depressed, very down, they tend to take on illnesses easier and all that stuff because their body's just kind of almost giving up because they have a give up attitude. Well, you can say that for the opposite too. I know recently I saw something about Alex Trebek. Alex Trebek from Jeopardy. And he had gotten cancer and he's fighting that cancer. But he even put out a public message on the internet, and he was very gracious about everything and how people were supporting him in this. And he was thanking everyone, and he was very happy, and he was positive. And sure enough, I just saw something the other day, I want to say, that says that he was in remission. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. That's the power of positivity. It is leaps and bounds over other just regular generic junk. I told that to the formation just the other day. We had a little safety brief, end of the week type thing. And I told them, listen, do good things. Good things equal to good things. Bad thing usually equal to bad things. So keep doing good things. Keep positive. And I promise you that positivity is going to spread like wildflowers.
Yeah, no, that's true. And actually, so the Alex Trebek story, good Canadian guy there. Alex Trebek story actually reminded me. So, I'm a wrestling guy, and the wrestler Roman Reigns, who is Dwayne Johnson's cousin, he had leukemia and it came back. He had it. He went in remission. It came back, and he went into remission again. He came back to wrestling, and the very first night he returned, he went out to the audience. And he said the outpouring of support and everything has been amazing from the fans. And I'm here because of you. And then he said, I just want to thank all my fans for all the letters, the cards, the flowers. So very public and a shotgun to a lot of people. But he at least showed his gratitude to those fans, while he was battling leukemia. And he's still in remission. But that's what Alex Trebek's story kind of reminded me of, is him coming out the very first night and being like, hey, I'm in remission, y'all. I think that's exactly how he said it, actually. But and then thanking the audience. So it does have an impact. It has an impact knowing you have that support. And then these are people that he's never met, but they still support him. And he's like, hey, I am so thankful for what y'all did for me.
Absolutely. And so let's look at it two ways then. If somebody came out and thanked a bunch of people like that, they're probably going to continue to get support, right? And they're going to be continuously successful in a sense. Or let's go to the opposite side. What if somebody come out and said, "Yep, I did all this by myself. No thanks to any of you. It was all me." I basically just that's kind of like how most heels on wrestling are, right? But
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a character then.
but yeah, like I did this all by myself. No one helped me, and it's my hard work and all this stuff. And if you publicly announce that in front of a group of people, I'm telling you, you just put a massive target on your back. Like you automatically, as soon as you said that, you got a target on your back. You're not going to bounce back from something like that.
Well, so you talk about public, Brian. We all know who my guy is in military history. So Patton was known for pinning medals on soldiers. He went to hospitals and pinned Purple Hearts on soldiers. He was big on the reward or recognize in public. And he was also known for thanking people for their service, the people that served with him. So, yeah, he had some bad stuff. I'm not saying he wasn't the perfect human being, but he also had some stuff that was very good. And that's one of those things. And that is part of the mystique of Patton. Why, if he was so hard on his men, why did they follow him into such impossible odds all the time? Well, that's why, because he recognized them in public. He was gracious. He showed gratitude for what they did. He just really wanted to kick them in the backside all the time, but keep them. He was pushing them harder. That's all. But
absolutely.
But that's one of the big things. Like with him was he used to carry, like his aide would carry bags of medals around, and he would just start pinning Purple Hearts on guys in the hospital during World War II.
Oh, wow. All right, so let's round this out real quick. As leaders, we constantly look towards the future so that we can provide vision and direction for our organizations. Wow, that sounds familiar. We've talked about that. But sometimes we need to take a few minutes each day and recognize the hard work of those who got us to the present. In doing so, we cultivate a culture of gratitude that has positive impacts on our organizations and ourselves. And we can do that by saying the two words that our parents taught us a long time ago. Thank you. Short article. Obviously, we talked a while about it, and then we tied it to another one. But I mean, it speaks to me loudly. I don't know about you, but it speaks to me loudly.
It does, Brian, because this is so. And then through all our discussion, I'll be honest. I've read this article and I've had these discussions with my wife, but during our show, you kind of lose sight of this whole thing is about leadership lesson our parents taught us, and then you bring it right back right here, and it's like, I mean, they were grooming us to be leaders way back then by just teaching us, hey, what do you say? And I still see parents do that.
Yep.
Halloween's a good example.
Yep.
When kids come to the door and the smaller kids who have parents with them, the kid gets their candy, they turn, the parents goes, what do you say? I say that you're teaching a leader. That's what I say. That's just Ed speaking though.
You're being an influencer. That's crazy.
Yes. And we're going to talk. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we talk about influence
a
once
lot.
or twice on the show.
Yeah. Hey, so I'm already ready to pop out a task here, man. I'm ready to give task out.
Well, this should be interesting.
Oh, no, it's going to be interesting. And if you remember correctly, sometime back when we said, hey, we got the Facebook group. By the way, Facebook group is found at Facebook in the search bar. Type 101 Influence. That's going to be the podcast page. And then if you hit visit group, the little blue button says visit group, that'll take you to the closed Facebook group where you become a member of our group, basically our support, the support group. This is what the task will be, and you'll see it for episode 35. The task is write a note of gratitude to someone and make sure it is handwritten.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's all you got to do. That requires nothing on the website itself. Just write a handwritten note. It could be a card. It could be anything. I like old style stationery. How about you?
I don't really have a preference. I just I don't know. I like a messy note, because it just shows, I don't know. It lets me know that it's definitely not computer generated, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could also, like, for me, like, what I plan on doing, because I said I plan on kind of adopting this.
Yeah,
I'm a Post-it note guy, man. I am a Post-it note. So, I mean, somebody I work with may find a Post-it note that just says, "Hey, I really appreciate,
that's it.
you taking the lead on the IPR for the change of command."
Yeah. Do you
So,
remember?
never know.
Let me ask you something. Do you remember when I got promoted?
I do.
Do you remember what you got in the mail after the promotion at all?
Did I get a thank you note in the mail?
You sure did. Yeah, because if you remember
Was that
correctly,
you?
that was yes. If you remember correctly, I'd asked you for your address, and you thought I was sending you some type of gift, and I told you no, it's just a thank you note, buddy. But
Yeah. I do remember that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
thought you were sending me some, stuff about podcasting or something, some kind of propaganda to
yeah,
get me to podcast
yeah.
with you.
But it was I find it I'm rather fond of like antique looking stuff or older stationery, and that's what I found. And then it just happened to be when I was looking for it, I found one of those things where you can melt wax and then you pour it over it and you use a little stamp.
The wax,
Yeah.
I do remember that. Actually,
Yeah.
that's in my drawer. I may have that
Yeah,
right here
I
at my
I
desk.
like I like I like that old wax, and you basically stamp it over the envelope so it seals the envelope with the wax. It's at home. I didn't bring it with me, but to me, it's just stuff like it. If you take the time to do something for someone, all right, whether it be just a thank you or a handwritten note, but remember the task is to do the handwritten note. All right, just one handwritten note at least once a week. If you do once a week, you'll probably find yourself doing twice a week. And then you probably find yourself doing 3 or 4 at the end of each week to deliver out on Mondays. But those are the things that help build a community. And if you were to get to the core of what it means to be an influencer, as an instinctive influencer, get to the core of it, that right there is one of the small things that helps us become better influencers. Because we're showing that gratitude through a physical means of using our time of the day to show someone gratitude, we are going to influence somebody else out there to do something great. Wouldn't you say that, Ed?
I would. So I was really just sitting here thinking, how much wife credit can I get for writing a thank you note to my wife?
She's going to listen to this and
But
yeah.
beyond wife credit, I actually think that's not a bad idea though, because so like let's look at like like with your wife, right? I mean, she's there, she's got the 2 kids right now while you're away serving in Korea, but I mean, dropping her a line and saying, "Hey, I appreciate," because I know we know she's sacrificing stuff, and
Oh yeah.
the wow, the feeling that she would have. And then my wife, my wife is so many deployments and years apart, and that's
Maybe
actually
here's a
I
good
gotta stop
idea.
because she's gonna listen and she's like,
Maybe you
"These
send my
things."
wife a thank you note and I send your wife a thank you note.
Thank you for being married
That's
to
it
an
right
amazing
there, man.
co-host.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we have for today. We don't want to go too long because I know if you've noticed, some of our shows have been getting a little longer and we get so winded, but we didn't want to, waste any time. We want to get straight to the point. Hey, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Show it and it will reflect. I guarantee it. You have anything else for him, Ed?
Yeah, like Brian said, if you show gratitude, there's a lot of benefits: emotional, social, personality. There's research where it's got a health advantage to you, even helping you sleep better. And absolutely, it's going to help you with your career. And all those things are going to help you be a happier person. So show some
Yeah.
gratitude. Thank somebody. Thank the person at Walmart today when you go in there and say, "Hey, thank you for your good service." Something.
Absolutely. And you know what? If you would help show us some gratitude by letting us know what you think about the show. Go onto the website, or actually just go to the Facebook one. It works just as well. And give us your opinion, your thoughts. I mean, and if you don't like some of the stuff, let us know too, because we're all about open feedback, honest feedback. To me, that is being very gracious in a sense. When I receive that honest feedback and somebody lets me know where I'm missing the mark, and then I can make adjustments, that right there, that leaps and bounds above everything else. So, but let us know. Let us know what you think about the show. Give us some feedback on Facebook. Just go to 101 Influence in your search bar. Other than that, I'm ready to close this one out today. About you, Ed?
Yeah, hopefully everybody did a little learning today. We like to contribute to your lifelong learning. So, yeah, excellent episode, Brian.
Oh, man, I couldn't agree more. So with that,
I appreciate your work on the episode.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for all the work you did, actually. With that, I am Brian.
And I am Ed.
And this has been the Instinctive Influencer Podcast. We thank you so much for listening. Do you get it? I said thank you. Have a great day.